One day, a boy discovers a crocodile in his storeroom. Their first meeting isn't pleasant, but soon they become best friends, doing everything together. The crocodile, named Lyle, explores the city's streets with the boy, learning to sing and dance. Even the boy's mother, whose life had become monotonous, finds joy and entertainment after Lyle's arrival. Together, they dance, cook, and enjoy life. Joss, the boy's father, a former boxing champion, is initially terrified of Lyle. But Lyle cleverly wins him over, even challenging him to a boxing match and purposely losing. After years, Joss starts enjoying life again. However, things take a turn when an animal control team captures Lyle and locks him in a zoo. The boy, determined to get Lyle back at any cost, sets out on a mission. To find out what happens next, let's dive into the detailed explanation of the movie. And yes, please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. The movie begins by introducing Hector, a stage performer going through tough times. No theater or talent audition team wants him because he doesn't have anything new to show. Desperate for something unique, he visits a pet shop and hears a beautiful singing voice. Following the sound, he finds a small crocodile, singing and dancing with incredible talent. Hector immediately purchases the crocodile and names him Lyle. For a long time, Hector practices singing and dancing with Lyle, planning to showcase him to the world and earn money. However, Hector doesn't have enough funds to organize a show, so he mortgages his brownstone house and arranges a grand performance, advertising it all over the city. Unfortunately, on the big day, Lyle gets stage fright and freezes at the sight of the crowd. The show fails miserably. Heartbroken, Hector leaves Lyle in the house and goes on the road, performing street shows to make ends meet. 18 months later, the Primm family moves into the house. Mr. Primm, a math teacher, struggles to control his students, while his wife, a homemaker, has learned cooking skills through YouTube videos. Their son, Josh, suffers from various phobias and is overly cautious. Upon moving into the new house, they meet their neighbor, Mr. Grumps, a grumpy, nosy, and rule-obsessed man. That night, Josh hears noises from the storeroom above his room and decides to investigate. There, he encounters Lyle, who frightens him at first. When the family cat jumps at Lyle, he instinctively opens his mouth and swallows the cat whole. Lyle then flees, and Josh chases him to save his cat. He ends up in a deserted alley, where a mugger tries to attack him. But Lyle appears, roars loudly, scares the mugger away, and safely returns the cat to Josh. From that moment, the two become best friends. The next day, Josh, without needing anyone's help, takes a shortcut through the streets and reaches school, which surprises his mother. She wonders how he suddenly became so brave. At the school library, Josh is reading a book about crocodiles when Trudy approaches him and invites him to join her team for the talent show. Nervous, Josh fails to respond but later follows her on social media. That night, Josh and Lyle roam around New York streets again, enjoying themselves. Lyle even plans a special dinner for Josh. Unfortunately, the dinner is full of bakery items, which Josh has never tried because his mother believes baked goods are unhealthy. Lyle, however, insists and makes Josh try a pastry, which he loves. Afterward, Lyle performs for Josh, singing and dancing enthusiastically. The next morning, Mrs. Primm goes to wake Josh for school and is shocked to find her son sleeping next to a massive crocodile. Terrified, she quickly takes Josh to school. On the way, she calls Mr. Primm to tell him about Lyle, but Josh reassures her that Lyle is kind and his first and best friend in New York. Reluctantly, she agrees to let Lyle stay. When they return home, Mrs. Primm hears strange noises coming from the bathroom. When she checks, she finds Lyle enjoying a bath, which scares her again, and she rushes to the kitchen. Lyle follows her and, in a playful gesture, feeds her a spoonful of sugar. The taste reminds her of her younger, carefree days. Lyle tells her, life's sweetness lies in enjoying the sweet moments. After that, Lyle prepares a delicious breakfast for her. Gradually, Mrs. Primm joins him, and they cook together, singing and dancing. Later, when Josh comes home from school, he finds his mother in a cheerful mood, and they show him the beautiful cake they made together. That night, Mr. Primm notices how happy his wife seems, which makes him suspicious. Meanwhile, Josh, Lyle, and Mrs. Primm go on another nighttime adventure, exploring the city and dancing in the streets. Hearing strange noises, Mr. Grumps installs security cameras around the house. The next morning, seeing pizza for breakfast, Mr. Primm becomes even more worried, thinking his wife might have met someone new. Left with no choice, Mrs. Primm introduces him to Lyle. At first, Mr. Primm is scared and tries to leave the house, but Hector appears at the door. Initially, Lyle behaves rudely toward Hector, but after a heartwarming moment, the two start singing and dancing together again. Mrs. Primm calls their landlord, who explains that the house contract allows the previous owner, Hector, to stay there for 15 days each year. The next day is family day, and Hector joins them, dressing Lyle in a t-shirt that makes him look like a child wearing a crocodile costume. Since Mr. Primm still hasn't warmed up to Lyle, the crocodile playfully challenges him to a boxing match. The two have a fun fight, with Lyle intentionally losing. For the first time in years, Mr. Primm starts enjoying life again. Lyle becomes a cherished part of the family, and everyone loves his company. One day, Hector takes Lyle for another stage performance. Unfortunately, just like before, Lyle freezes on stage. On the way back, Hector hugs him and reassures him that everything is okay, encouraging him to keep trying. The next day, Mr. Grumpson hosts a meeting with the neighborhood residents, accusing the Primm family of hiding a dangerous creature in their house. He urges everyone to sign a petition to have them evicted. Just as tensions rise, Hector arrives and exposes Mr. Grumpson for secretly installing security cameras without anyone's permission to spy on the neighbors. This revelation angers everyone, and they leave the meeting. Mr. Primm thanks Hector for his help, but Hector quickly disappears, as he had secretly tipped off the wildlife control team about Lyle in exchange for money. Shortly after, the animal control team arrives. Josh tries to stop them by asking Lyle to sing and dance, but Lyle freezes in front of strangers. Unable to perform, Lyle is captured and taken to the zoo. The next day, the family visits Lyle at the zoo. Seeing him locked up, Josh becomes emotional and begs his parents to bring him back home. However, they refuse, believing the zoo is a safer place for Lyle, where he will be properly cared for. Frustrated, Josh yells at them, surprising his parents with his newfound confidence, a change Lyle had brought about in him. That night, Lyle sings in his cage while the family misses his presence deeply. Meanwhile, Hector regrets his actions and decides to make things right. Later, Hector stages a dramatic act at the zoo by pretending to handcuff himself to the gates. When a security guard comes to check, Hector locks the guard in the handcuffs and sneaks into Lyle's cage. However, Lyle, angry at Hector, ignores him. Just then, other crocodiles approach Hector aggressively. Josh arrives in time but refuses to help Hector. Admitting his mistakes, Hector confesses that he had used Lyle for his own gain, but insists that they are still family. Touched, Lyle defends Hector from the other crocodiles, and together they escape. By morning, the police arrive and demand their surrender. At the same time, the talent show bus carrying Trudy passes by. Josh realizes this is their last chance to prove Lyle's friendly nature. While Hector distracts the police with his magic tricks, Josh grabs Hector's bike and races to the audition venue. Though terrified of riding the bike, Lyle encourages him to be brave. Inspired, Josh speeds across the city and arrives just in time, calling Trudy to open the backstage door. Trudy is initially scared upon seeing Lyle, but Josh explains everything, convincing her to let Lyle take his place on stage. When Lyle appears, the audience panics at the sight of a real crocodile. Lyle, as usual, freezes on stage, but Josh starts singing to encourage him. Slowly gaining confidence, Lyle joins in, delivering a powerful performance with energetic singing and dancing. Trudy's entire team supports him as backup dancers. The audience is thrilled by Lyle's performance, and even the police and animal control team leave without taking any action. A month later, the family finds themselves in court as Mr. Grumpson sues them for keeping a dangerous animal. Just as the judge is about to rule against them, Hector arrives with the original house documents, revealing that Grumpson had stolen them years ago. The documents prove that the house was purchased by Hector's grandmother, who had also founded the city's first zoo. This revelation leads the judge to rule in the family's favor, much to their delight. A few days later, the Primms leave for a vacation, taking Lyle along. Hector feels a little down as he had booked several performances for Lyle. But Trudy surprises him by gifting him a pet rattlesnake with an exceptional talent for beatboxing.